This is the brand new Knolly Chilcotin, a big rig 29-inch race machine. On the build I'm riding, you'll find a 170mm RockShox Zeb up front. In the rear, you'll find 166mm of travel made possible by their impressive 4x suspension design and a RockShox Super Deluxe. This build is also sporting a Maxxis Assegai up front and a DHR2 in the rear, both in the Max Grip Double Down configuration. But it should be noted, the models you'll find in the shop will have the XO Plus casing. And although this bike has a Chromag cockpit, some supply chain issues mean you'll probably find this bike with a set of spank bars and stem. Speaking of spank, the Chilcotin is rolling on a set of spank rims and hubs. Knolly is also one of the few brands that have opted for the 157 trail rear spacing to allow for increased clearance and stiffness. And to get this bike rolling, you'll find the ever-popular GX Eagle derailleur and cassette. Bringing that rolling to a stop, this build uses the SRAM codes. Finally, to finish things off, a reverb dropper, held by a C-tube that looks like it could easily accommodate the largest droppers available. But the specs aren't what's really interesting about this bike, and Knolly as a brand. What I really admire is that they've opted to stick with aluminum and create premium, competitive products that challenge the idea that carbon is king. As soon as you step on a Knolly, you'll find they have a very solid feel, and you might imagine that this comes at a substantial weight penalty. But my current Specialized Enduro build, with a carbon frame, wheels, and bar, only weighs a fraction of a pound less, both coming in around 37 pounds with pedals. And if you're interested in this bike, it will be available at my favorite bike shop, Kinetic Cycles, located here in Coquitlam, British Columbia. Stop by and check one out, but come quick, or they may be gone. Lastly, let's take a moment to enjoy the fantastic construction of the frame before we head to the North Shore to see what this thing is made of.
Alright, let's see how this thing descends. So, take it down sort of this tech flow. First trail of the day, maybe take it a little easy. I definitely find this thing wants to go. It plows. So wondering if, because this bike is aluminum, maybe it just absorbs that little bit of chatter, and I don't need to. It's funny, I almost like don't. I'm not as concerned with the bike. Yeah, like this bike just feels like, ooh, I think probably with the Zeb too, that stiffness. I just want to get going. Can I get this manual? Nope. It does have shorter chainstays too than the Enduro, so definitely, even though it's a really big bike, feels very poppy. Let's just get through these. Whoops! Oh, pedal. Ooh, bomb hole. All right, now this trail I really like. On this bike, so chunky and so chundery, but on this bike you just kind of want to send it. Like, I never drop that. And then you can, it's got some giddy up. So you get to this flat section, boom, you hit the pedals. Then you come here, ooh, great jumper. I think the shorter chainstay makes this a little poppier, a little easier on the jumps than something like the Enduro. And even in the flat sections, it's a big bike, but it does okay. Corners well, but when you get to somewhere like this, kind of flat, that's when this big bike are kind of like, ugh. It'd be a little hard to throw around. Got a lot of mass. Are you talking about this rock right here? It's not perfect for anything. There's nothing, it's meant to be avoided. Classic Dave. All right, so now on to Boogeyman. Kind of a double black, maybe single black with double black features. A little bit of a flatter trail. Don't exactly need something as big as the Chilcotin to ride it, but it's good to test this bike out on trails like this. It's got some skinnies, got some kind of tight corners. It's an older trail. I do find I am enjoying the shorter rear end on this bike. Just makes having such a big bike a little easier to corner, just like that. A little easier to hop, just a little more playful. And I know, you know, the Enduro was really fun in the park, and I have a feeling this bike could be great in the park, but you know, not always riding the park. Sometimes I'm riding skinnies on the North Shore. Oh, this looks so greasy. Let's just get a little, yep, okay. Ooh. And don't get me wrong, this is a big bike, but I think Knolly have done a great job in making basically a downhill bike that's pretty good to pedal up the hill. You know, it's not a breeze up the hill, especially with the double downs that I have here. All that will come spec'd with Exo Plus tires, which I think would help a lot. But if you're someone who wants like a downhill bike that you can also pedal up the hill, this is a great choice. Like if I was gonna live in Whistler for the summer and I just wanted one bike, this makes 100% sense. I would have no problem riding this in the park. And you know, it's not the end of the world if you have to pedal up the hill. And not once when I've been riding this bike have I thought, oh, I wish the frame was carbon. Whatever voodoo they're doing with their aluminum, it's working. And I wish we saw more top end specs on aluminum bikes from other brands. And another thing I love about this bike is their 4x suspension design. I think they really nailed it. If you haven't ridden a Knolly before, they definitely feel really good. It's got kind of that bottomless feel, but still, you know, not a lot of hill bob when you're pedaling. It still has that get up and go. Great optimization for not feeling, you know, too much of a burden, but still giving you all that support you need. Like I just want to just hit huge drops on this thing. This bike is definitely a great jumper, and I think it's because of the slightly shorter chainstay that I feel just a little better in the air. All right, Ned's Atomic Dustbin. In the winter, it's more like Ned's Atomic Creep Bed. This trail is super fun on this bike. This deck definitely leans very downhill, especially with these double down max grip tires. You know, you got the Assegai in the front. So you ride this huge 29er through here, just boom, boom, oh, just plowing through the chundry just rocks. I think there's some, oh yeah, there's definitely some wheel dingers there. Ooh, is that a double there? Oh, this bike is quite quiet too. And I definitely think this Zeb is such a good choice for this bike. Oh, and there's something about, I don't know if it's like the aluminum or just how big this bike is, but I just want to find some drops and jump them. And I also find that I want to, wow, that's slippery. I would almost describe this bike as a playful downhill bike. I think I would actually prefer to ride this. Hi. In the park over my downhill bike. So another thing about this bike is you can run it in a shorter travel configuration with 160 mil shock and 150 in the rear, make it a bit more maybe enduro race, I think. Like I think I would do that because as you get to be a stronger rider, you can get away with a little bit less suspension and get a little bit of bike control back. That'd be cool to have. All right, so who's this bike for? I think someone who definitely wants like a downhill oriented bike, but still wants to be able to pedal up to the top of the hill, especially in that 170 and 166 configuration. And I think in the 160, 150 configuration, that's how I'd probably run it if I was going to race it. I do wish there was more things like internal storage or spots to put a tube or whatever, but other than that, I'd really have to nitpick. But in its current configuration, I would say this is a playful downhill bike you can pedal to the top of the mountain, especially with that aluminum frame, especially with that Zeb. Feels, you know, super stable, surprisingly stiff. I never thought, you know, wow, I wish, you know, blah, blah, blah was carbon. The aluminum feels stiff, but still, you know, a little bit forgiving on sort of that chattery stuff, or hard to explain, but it definitely makes me want to just, it doesn't feel fragile. I can just send it into the chunk. I'm just not concerned at all. So if you're kind of familiar with my style of riding, I think that's what this bike suits. And well, if you're looking for a big bike, a do-it-all kind of bike that really, you know, pretty heavily leans in the downhill section, and you can always check one out at Connect Cycles here in Vancouver, BC, over in Coquitlam actually, but you'll find it. Okay, let me know what you think of this bike in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.